Greetings and welcome to the basement. In this video, we're going to take a look at getting our scrolls per second up and running. We will also take a look at getting the upgrade system up and running. We will not be taking a look at the visualization aspect. That's going to be put off for a separate video. In the previous video, just as a reminder, we basically just got our core click mechanic up and running. So we click on the book and we get to scroll. Now we want to get the scrolls per second, probably also the scrolls per click while we're at it, and the upgrade system all nice and up and running. So let's deal with the scrolls per second first, because we can get this information here set up before we have the upgrades, because we can always come into the variables section of our state machine and modify how many quills and how many speed potions I'm currently in possession of. Whether I do that at runtime or before I hit the play button, doesn't really matter. Nope. As I click on all the things I don't want to click on. There, great, awesome. Now, since I had already sketched out all my logic, I knew that I was going to need this particular state right here, so I already have my per second state set up. So what I need to be able to do is I need to take my auto quills, multiply that by my quill power, take the result of that, and add it into my scrolls. And I'm going to have to create new variables. Well, a new variable, because of some of the weirdness with Playmaker math. For whatever reason, Playmaker does not support the logic A equals B plus C. For example, if we go over here to Actions, and we look for a float add, because we are going to need one of these, I have the ability to set a variable, I have the ability to add a variable, and that's it. The result is going to be stored back in this first float. In other words, Playmaker can only do A equals A plus B. It cannot do A equals B plus C. So we have to structure our results, structure our math around this a little bit. And that is going to entail some additional variables to remember different steps of the equation. Even for something as simple as multiply two values together and then add that into another value. So what I'm going to do in the variable section, I am going to create a new variable, which will be current, lowercase c, thank you, current scrolls second. Come back over here, and what I need to do is I'm going to use that basically to do all of my calculations up until I add it into my score, or my scrolls variable. So the first thing I need to do is set a float, which of course is under the math category, set float value, there we go. And I'm going to set current scrolls per second to the value of my auto quills. Next, I need to multiply and again, there we go, under math. Well, as you can see, I've already done this before in a practice run. Under math, I have float multiply, which is exactly what I need here. So drag that in. Nope, not there. Thank you. There we go. And I will multiply my current scrolls per second by my quill power. So I've stored the number of auto quills. I am multiplying by my quill power. And so now I need to take that value, this current scroll second, and add it into my scrolls. Now on this one, I want to do this per second, not every frame. As I've said in the previous video, every frame would be very bad here because this is a blocking checkbox. It'll make these things block and my finished event will not fire. But I do want the per second here because I want this value scaled by my time.delta time. Now I could do this manually, but since Playmaker is going to be helpful and do it for me, that's fine. It's one of the odd parts about Playmaker. Sometimes it makes you do really weird things like create temporary variables to do basic math equations. And then it helps you with, you know, standard rote stuff like if having to scale things by time.delta time. I don't know. It's weird. But it works. At least it should work. Let's hit the play button and see what happens. Nothing, of course, because I don't have any auto quills. So I'll hop over to Playmaker, go into my variables, go into, where's auto quill? There it is. Change this value to 1. Oh. Oh dear. That is not okay. Now, if you'll remember when we were back setting up our first round of the Playmaker states, and I was setting up all of this initial clearing out of values and such, I made a comment of, this will cause problems. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. This is utterly unacceptable. We cannot subject our players to that. That is not okay. Excuse me. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to either like round down, which is basically a floor operation. I guess you could round up as well. I would recommend against that because, you know, at least at the slower speeds, if it's off by 1, the player's going to wonder, it's like, why doesn't this work for the first couple of clicks? And all of a sudden it does work. It's like, yeah, that, no. We want to round down, or in other words, do a flooring operation, which of course would be a very, very basic math action, right? I mean, any common sense basic math library is going to have rounding or floor operations or seal operations. Hello, Playmaker? What? You don't have round. It doesn't have rounding. Oy. This annoys me, if I have not made that quite clear by this point. The idea that you do not have a round or floor or seal operation as a basic part of your math library baffles me beyond belief. I do not understand why Playmaker has decided to do, or more correctly, not do not provide floors and rounds. Now, it's not a disaster level scenario by any stretch of the imaginations. There is a thing called the Eco Browser, which you can add in. I don't want to deal with the Eco Browser in this video, but it is a very good tool for finding Playmaker actions that are not part of the standard install. But even if we ignore that, there's things that we can do. Now, we can take a floating point number and stuff it into an integer. It's called casting. And when you cast a floating point into an integer, how C# handles it, which means this is how Playmaker handles it, since it's, written on top of, it's written in C#, I should say, is, well, if I stuff an int into a float, it's basically a floor operation. I drop the decimal. 1.999 stuffed into an integer is equal to 1. So we will use that to our advantage. So up here, and again, I'm going to need another variable. So let's see here. Variables. What is this going to be? I'm going to call this rounded scrolls. Not technically rounded, but it captures the general intent, I suppose. That, of course, needs to be an integer value. Add that in. And then what I need to do is there is a set int from float action that's under the standard math library. Drag that up there, and the int variable will be rounded scrolls. The float value that I'm going to stuff in there will be my scrolls. And then here in my UI text set text, instead of setting it to scrolls, I will set it to rounded scrolls, which should fix the problem. Hit the play button. And then remember that I don't have any auto quill set. I did it slightly different in my practice. So, all right, let's get my auto quill set. Variables and auto quill. Set you to 1. And there we go. It went up and keeps going up. Now, if I don't, I can also set this beforehand, so I can come over here and say, okay, auto quills, I want you to start at 8. So I should see an increase of 2 per second. And I should still be able to click. And as you can see, yep, everything is working as intended, and this is updating as well. My purchase auto quill is working as well. Now, I don't really want to start off with 8, so I'm going to go ahead and come back in here and pull that down, 0. Okay. Now, I can't do, or at least I don't want to do my click yet, because it's the act of purchasing is where I want to update this scrolls per click value here. So that one I shall hold off on. Okay, let's take a look at getting our upgrade buttons set up for purchase amounts. And that's going to be off of here. So I'm going to need 3 of these UI button on-click checks. So I'm just going to grab this, Control-C to copy it, and then 1, 2, 3, paste it in. I'm going to need to link up all of the specific buttons. So coming over here to my main UI, expand that out. That's not the visualization. I need the upgrade to purchase UI. And there we go. There's my 1x, 5x, 100x buttons. So I'll just drag this one over. Drag this over. And drag this over. Now, all of these are going to need their own custom event, because each of these is going to have to go to a separate state. Pretty simple, basic rote work. And so while I am doing this, I'm going to talk about something. This is this solution bugs me, I'll be honest. Oops, underscore. Keeping with conventions here. This bugs me. I don't like this. I just feel like there should be a slightly more elegant solution than creating all of these unique transitions and having these all go to their own personal states and then rejoin everything together. It just seems like there should be a more elegant solution. But at the end of the day, what matters? Well, what matters is, how do your end users think of this? Do your end users care how elegant your created solutions are? No. No, they do not. What your users care about is the game fun? In the case of game development, is this game fun to play? Does it work well? Does it perform well? Do they get more than 5 frames per second trying to play your game? Things like that. They don't care how elegant or how ugly your solutions are. All they care about is, are they having fun? So at the end of the day, this works, and it works efficiently enough that it really doesn't matter. And then all of these, of course, are going to be going to the same event to actually update costs and everything. So I'll go ahead and call this update cost. All right. So, like I said, it's probably something more elegant out there, but this works, and it's fairly clear and easy to understand. So, enough whining on my part. Let's continue. So, set 1x. Again, all of these are really brain dead simple. I'm setting, again, an int value. So, hey, that's convenient. Have that up. Mouse, it would be appreciated if you would stop double-clicking. And I will set my purchase amount, and I am in the 1x, so that'll be set to 1. Grab this action, copy it, paste it in. Oops. Making sure that I'm actually in this area here so that it pastes the action here instead of creating a new state. So yeah, this will be saying it. Not 15. Five. There we go. And 100. It's pretty simple. Our button check. We check for our set buttons. Comes over here to our 1x, 5x, 100. Set our purchase amount. And now we need to update costs. How are we going to do that? Well, remember I've got, I had that little formula. It's like, okay, I want it to be, so you're checking my notes here. I have too many pieces of paper on my desk, so I don't have the PDF pulled up. Here we go. It's going to be Quills times Quill Cost. Basically, number of quills times the quill cost. And the first purchase is always just going to be quill cost because, I've got 0 quills, plus my base cost. So I think my base cost right now is 25. So that's your potion cost is 25. Quill cost is 100. Which means, my cost value was not updating correctly. Just pardon me. So, if I've got 1 quill, then the next cost should be 100. If I've got, more, it should be more. So I've got, there's a couple of different ways that I can approach this. Honestly, probably the easiest one. Let's take a thought on the 100x purchase. What would be the easiest way to approach that? Well, honestly, with computers, the laziest way, and it's, a little bit of brute force, but I just got done saying it doesn't matter, would be to write a for loop and say, okay, I'm going to go through this 100 times, each time updating the cost to get how much this needs to be. Well, there is a problem with that, and there's no for loop. We go down here to logic. Oop, not lights. Logic. Yeah, there's nothing really in here that's a for loop. We've got Boolean. We've got some compares. Did things change? We've got some switches. And nothing that's inherently a for loop. Now, I can create a for loop with this, but it's going to be kind of messy. Or I can go out and I can do some math. This is actually the better option. And I bring this up. And this is just, scribbles I was doing, working out the formula. I had to go and look up the summation formula because, it's not something I use all the time, so I can never remember the darn thing. And this is eventually what I came up with this right down here. If I want to calculate out, if I want to make 100 purchases, it's this formula right here, basically. Cost times purchase plus cost times purchase plus 1 times 1/2, or basically divided by 1/2. You can see the, working out the formulas down through here. Plus, because my 0, I've got this 0 option in here, which throws off the base formula a little bit. And so here, the cost formula is the cost plus the count times my cost. So 0 count gives me cost. 1 count gives me 2 times cost. 2 counts gives me 3 times, 3 cost, so on and so forth. And so I just did the math. And I was like, okay, if I'm buying 0, my first purchase cost me 25, then 50, then 75, which means if I buy, through here, I should have 150. But if I do the formula from 1 to 2, which is, the standard way of writing it, that only gives me 125, so on and so forth. I didn't work out the math. It took me like, 15 minutes to figure this out. I bring this up because math is so important. And yeah, you get to see my desktop now. Congratulations. Mouse, I would really appreciate it if you would stop double clicking. Math is really, really important. As a game designer, you've got to understand math. You've got to be able to work with it because so much of making a game feel right is being able to manipulate the numbers to make it feel right. Do not underestimate the importance of math. And the other importance of doing out that big massive formula is because of the weird way that Playmaker likes to handle operations. Basically, I can only do a single operation at once. I have to figure out how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to take cost, I've got to assign these. So cost times purchase goes to X, which actually is not the first step. I actually have to first say, okay, you know what? Purchase, assign that to X. Then assign, X goes to X times cost. And then I've got to store, and you see here, I caught myself here. It's like I set Y to 1. And then Y plus purchase goes to Y, and then Y times purchase goes to Y, then Y times 1/2 goes to Y, and then finally X plus Y goes to X, which equals my final cost. Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but it's what we got to do. And I need to update the costs for both of these. Now, there's one other thing that we do need to consider for this, and that is, what if I already have 45 quills and I want to buy 100 of them? Basically, what I need to do is, I need to calculate out what is the cost of buying 145 quills, what is the cost of buying 45 quills, and subtract it. Which, to be honest, is a lot of fiddly action drag in. And so this is one of the few times that I am going to use the magic of video editing and skip forward to where I have all of this done. So I will be, from your perspective, right back. And through the magic of editing, welcome back. It's been just a moment for you, but it's been a journey for me, as you can probably tell by the rather alarming expansion of the state machine we've got going on here. As I was going through and doing the math, I realized that, most of these actions are just math, dragging in Playmaker actions, configuring the math, doing a little bit of troubleshooting on my equations, yada, yada, yada. Nothing really video worthy. So I went ahead and finished out all of the logic with the exception of updating these images here. This I still want to hold off for a separate video because I think that is worth going over. But otherwise, everything is completely functional now. In order to show this, well, actually the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my variables, and I'm going to go to my scrolls here, and I'm going to give myself 10,000 scrolls, or 100,000, that works too. Because I have no intentions of actually clicking enough times to, actually buy stuff. And so we can see here, my costs are, 125. I can purchase. If I change it to 5x, I can still purchase. Change it to 100x, I can't purchase. Because even my speed potions would require 126,250 scrolls in order to do that. If I come down here to the 5x, I can purchase a bunch of auto quills. And so now I've got 10 scrolls per second. You can see, that seems to be going up at about the right speed. I can buy some speed potions, so that way I get more per click. So now I get 36 per click. Yeah, everything seems to be working pretty good. I can go down to 1x, and now I can buy it. 100x. Yeah, now it would cost me close to 1,000,000 scrolls to buy 100 auto quills. So yeah, everything is working as expected. I'm going to go over the logic a little bit, and I want to show off the logic flow, the pulses in the state machine itself. So for that, I'm going to change things around. So that way, I've got my game window off on my second monitor, because that's not really the one I want to be looking at right now. What I really want to be looking at, see this a little bit, is the overall flow of the state machine. I'm also going to change scrolls back down to 0. Hit the play button. You notice we've got some different flow going on. This arrow is no longer being used. Instead, somehow we are magically getting over to this state, even though there's no arrows pointing to it. Notice, well, this arrow right here, the update buttons. I'm using a global transition. And remember, in Playmaker, the idea behind a global transition is basically keeping things neat. This state transitions to it, as does this one, as does this one, as does this one, as does this one. Now, I could do this without a global transition. I would just have 5 arrows streaking across my state machine, all going to this one state, which would be messy. Same thing here with the update cost global transition. Both of these need to transition to that state, and it would just be messy having those arrows going across like that. And so I used a global transition. Nothing fancy. It just helps keeps things a little bit cleaner. This is also, by the way, as a reminder, how you, or one of the best ways of triggering a transition in a different state machine. All right, so what's going on here? This is basically checking whether or not my buttons should be enabled. If I drag my screen over real quick, you can see the purchase buttons are disabled, as they should be, because I can't purchase anything. I'm going to change my scroll, not to 245, thank you very much. Change my scrolls to 24. And so what will happen when I click on the book, you will see the pulse. Well, first of all, you'll see this pulse here. And then you will see this flow change. Instead of going to disable potion, it's going to go to enable potion. So you saw the pulse there. And now this one is churning through here. Because, well, now I have enough to buy a potion. And then if I click on the purchase potion button, you'll see the pulse go through here. And now I'm back to pulsing through or running through the disable potion. Because now I don't have enough. Same if I was to set my scroll amount to 99. Of course, now I'm going through enable potion. And I'm going to click on the book. When I click on the book, of course, we'll see this pulse, and we'll go through enable quill, because I will have 101 scrolls. That enables me to buy a quill. I have both of my buttons enabled. I can click on purchase an auto quill. You can see here the decimal values going up on the scrolls. We saw the pulse through here, and now everything's going through the disabled buttons. Same thing if I was to, let's change my scrolls up to 500. So I can buy a potion, I can buy a quill, so both of those are enabled. But if I switch over to the 100x, actually I'll just do it 5x. So when I click on the 5x, you'll see this pulse. We updated our costs. I can still buy 5, I can buy 5 potions, but I can't buy 5 quills, so those are disabled. Click on the 100x, we'll see it pulse. Now both of those are disabled. Click on the 1x, we'll see it pulse through here. And now I can buy both a quill and a potion again. And so that's just the logic flow of everything at the moment. And if I really wanted to, it's like, what is, does my 100 purchase upgrade work? Well, okay, what is my current quill cost for 100? It's a lot, so I'll just take that, copy it, go into my scrolls, paste it. And purchase 100 auto quills. And indeed, it is working as expected. I purchased 100. I now have 102. If I wanted to check that on my Quills, what is my, not my Quills, potions. My current potion cost is that. So I'll copy it, go down to scrolls, paste that in. And I can buy the potions. I currently have 1. Now I have 101 with the appropriate scrolls per click. And everything is working as expected. All right, so just a quick couple of notes on the logic here. I do plan on doing a end of session review video where I just go over the entire logic all at once. But the update cost, yeah, it's just a bunch of math operations. Now, a quick retraction from my earlier rant in the video. You can, in fact, in Playmaker, do the, an equation of A equals B plus C. In my defense, it is a little bit weird because the only place that you can do that is in the operator actions, into operator, float operator. You can see that's precisely how I'm using it. I am adding purchase amount to auto quill and storing it in total amount. Why it's organized this way, I really don't know, but yeah. If you use the operator, you can do A equals B plus C. If you are using just the specific operation, like multiply, add, etc., yeah, no, then it's A equals A plus B or A equals A times B, whatever the case may be. So I was incorrect on that. And I had to actually go back through and rework out my math by hand to find where my error was, because this is one of the areas where I do not like Playmaker. This does not translate in my mind to an equation. This is a pain in the butt to troubleshoot for me, personally. I find being able to write out equations to be much easier. Now, in Playmaker's defense, what their actual intent would be is, as a designer, I would go, okay, I, have this equation that I need to go through to update the costs. I can give that equation to a programmer and say, here are the inputs that I want to go into this. Here's the outputs that I need from this action. And the programmer can make a custom action for me that I can drop in here. So I can just, drop in the action, feed in the inputs, and bam, one action and everything's done. So that's how it is intended to be used. But since we're not creating custom states for this example, yeah, kind of a pain in the butt. So we update our quills, we update our potions. For all of the global events, I'm just simply using the send event action and sending the update buttons event to myself, the state machine, which of course causes us to come over here, simple int compare. If my scrolls is less than my current potion cost, I go through disable. Both disable and enable use the UI set as interactable. Obviously, one turns it on, and one turns it off. And that's all I'm doing to enable or disable the buttons. Same thing over here with the purchases. Because I am paranoid, I am validating again that you can actually make this purchase. Theoretically, you shouldn't be able to click on the button if you can't afford it, but just in case. So I check again. If scrolls is less than current potion, then I just simply say, okay, well, let's update the buttons because obviously something's not right here. Otherwise, we go into purchase, in which case we subtract out the cost, update how many, in this case, how many potions we have, update our click amount so that we know how much we can get per click. And then make sure we go back through and update the costs information to ensure that after we've bought something, we have the now updated cost for buying the next one. And that is pretty much it as far as the logic goes. I mean, it's pretty simple. No, I'm not going to stop whining about the math operations. Yes, it bugs me that much. But that's more annoyance than it is any actual legitimate problem, to be honest. And there we go. We've got a functional idle game with a mostly functional UI. We still need to get these updating. However, this video is quite long enough, so we shall save that for the next one. So, as usual, if you have found this video to be helpful, click on the like button would be appreciated. If this was a complete waste of time and I bored you to tears, well, the dislike button is right next to it. I shall see you in the next video.